Behind the Middle Belt killings is Caliphate ethnic cleansing. Behind Niger Delta agitation is Caliphate seizure of oil and gas. Behind Biafra and Odua agitation, Caliphate imposed unitary Nigeria. Behind the Caliphate itself is the rogue 1999 Constitution. Elections 2023 is Caliphate push to retain the 1999 fraud. Nigerians, say no to any further election in the country. Let's take down the 1999 Constitution and save our people and our land.
Yes, welcome to this special broadcast by Ninas, addressing all stakeholders in what has become of Nigeria 1 year after an election that shouldn't have happened. We recall that Ninas did campaign vigorously for the suspension of further national elections under the Constitution, the Unitary Constitution 1999, that guarantees all of the atrocities we behold every day. The corruption we see, the impunity we see, the gross insecurity we see, the infrastructural decay we see, everything, the mass poverty we see, the mass expropriation we see, the economic freefall we now see, and the general dislocation and hopelessness pervading the entire atmosphere in Nigeria that has become the poverty capital of the world. This broadcast is directed at all of those who are now coming to where they say they must stand up and say no to what is going on. Some have described it as protest, others have described it as revolution. To be clear, the situation calls for some kind of response from those who are victims of a Nigeria, of that unitary Nigeria that has ruined their lives. Victims of that constitution that has taken away everything that should have been everything that should have made life easier for them. That constitution that creates and protects corruption. Yes, in the same vein, Ninas will be addressing the government of Nigeria on this same subject. This is the time to step back a bit, away from the calumny and blackmail and empty intimidation, to look at what the situation has become, to then decide whether the hardship, the sufferings that the people are complaining about is not real, or whether they're going to go away by themselves. And therefore to decide whether this is not really the time to engage the issues driving the situation that has gone worse. Recall, we asked everybody to move away from thought of election under this constitution. In 2023, the political parties did not listen. And so the APC has won. But there's hunger in the land. There's anger in the land. Everybody's gearing up for what they're going to do. And so we tell the government of the day to decide now whether they are going to get weapons and kill off the numbers that are now angry enough. It's not enough to say, oh, it is the Fulani that want to chase away Tinubu, or that it is Peter Obi and his Igbo followers, or that, all those will not wash. Look at the issues soberly and decide whether this is not the time to accept that the unitary constitutional arrangements of Nigeria can no longer carry the union any further. And therefore, initiating a transition, as we have been invited since 2020 to do, to decommission that constitution and get the owners of Nigeria, the ones who are fed up with everything in Nigeria, who could actually become controllers of their own if we don't find answers early enough for them, to come to deciding whether they want to continue in the Union of 1914 as defined by the fraud of 1999, and if yes, on what terms. Those are the only things that can solve the problem we have at hand. Every other thing will fail. It's a choice you have to make, and Ninas has distilled the mechanism, the framework, the sequence, the process in its 5-point proposition. This is the time to take a decision on that subject. Otherwise, it might be too late. And quite apart from that constitution, the proprietors of that unitary Nigeria, the subscribers to that constitution, which includes all the political parties, PDP, APC, ABGA, Labour Party, Action Alliance, every one of those political parties subscribe to that constitution. And so we had sometime in August of 2023 made a broadcast. At the time, people were waiting for what will happen in court. All eyes were on the judiciary. Those who went to election. We had made a broadcast to inform them that what we need to do to rescue ourselves from this monster of unitary Nigeria is to take down that constitution. And in saying that, we are not anarchists, and therefore there is a 5-point proposition for transitioning in which those who are saying no to what they are seeing can condition their can tailor their demands to target the foundation of that constitution. And this is taking advantage of the work, the enormous work that Ninas has done across the last 25 years to identify what the problem is, to then distill what the solution, the viable solution could be. Because we saw what happened in NSAS, in which young people just poured out there without any idea of what the problem is. Yes, they say police brutality, and therefore NSAS was their campaign slogan. But beyond that, electricity is not working. Corruption is growing. Impunity is multiplying. Infrastructure is decaying. And people are running in all kinds of directions just to flee from Nigeria. And so we tried to get at them at the time to say, please, this is what the problem is. So that this energy, this vast energy that is being brought together for protests can be directed at the source of the problem. Let us insist, let our demand be that the source of that problem, the source of all the problems, the source of corruption, the source of bad leadership, the source of humongous cost of governance, the source of the infrastructural decay, the source of the insecurity in which people are being beheaded all over the place, is that constitution. Let us demand an end to that, to the operation of that constitution. Let us demand a transition to go and rework the constitution, since that constitution is an imposition, is a fraud, is sitting on the basis of your signature that you didn't make. which the authors of that constitution had put there in the claim that we, the people, submitted our lands and our people into this union to be governed and managed according to this constitution. These 812 governments that have to be financed every month and all kinds of things. And so the organizers of that protest, or the ones who emerged to become the leaders of it, ignored it until they opened fire on them. And so let us remind ourselves what Ninas had told those who were planning protests and all kinds of things after the election, when the winner had been announced and they coronated in May. By August, we told those who were planning to raise all kinds of hell. By then, they had gone to Court of Appeal. The judgment had not come. And they were saying if the Court of Appeal will not give them judgment, they're going to do X, Y, Z. All kinds of protests and revolutions. And we told them that the better thing to do is to define the change you want. You went to election thinking that it was leadership problem that was going to be solved. You can now see that your votes will not even bring a new set of leaders. But even if your choice had emerged, this constitution that creates a union of master and servant, this constitution that creates corruption, massive corruption, and comprehensively protects the beneficiaries of corruption, will still be the basis of that leadership and governance. They will have to swear to defend and uphold that constitution. The 36 states will still be in place. The 774 local government areas will still be in place. The 68 items of exclusive list that make everything impossible will still be in place. And so, why do you imagine that it is a change of leadership, which you now seek to do by election, that will solve the problem created by the Constitution? Will the new set of people who emerge change that preamble that lied, that we submitted our lands? The people agitating for all kinds of things, flying all kinds of flags, that preamble will still be holding onto their land and their sovereignty, that we submitted all of our lands and our people into union. That constitution will still be having 36 states, 774 local government areas, and the 68 items of exclusive list. With the spare key, it handed to the heads of the executive branch, section 81, 82 for president, and section 121, 122 to the governors, with the blanket immunity clause at section 308. Having first excluded responsibility to the citizens as section 6, section 6C, in which the entire chapter 2 is made discretionary. The chapter 2 of that constitution is where all of your benefits are stored. Everything you should have gotten as citizen of Nigeria. Welfare, security, equal treatment, equal opportunities, and all the like. School, which is education, healthcare, every good thing you can imagine is written into that chapter 2. But that section 6, section 6C, makes it all discretionary to those in government house. And so the constitution that takes away everything from you by making it discretionary to those in government house, that give them the spare key to the treasury. You've seen what they are doing with the money in trillions. That gives them immunity. That creates humongous structures that will have to be financed for those who are looking for where they are corrupt, where their poverty is coming from. Too bad. As long as Nigeria has to finance 812 governments, that is one humongous federal government, one federal capital territory, 36 states, and 704 local government areas, with thousands of bureaucracies, because each of those entities have their own ministry and extra ministerial departments, that have to be financed every month. So there's no money left to do anything for the citizen, to do anything for anybody. Let us now listen to that broadcast by which we were informing those who were planning to protest, planning to say no, what they should be looking out for. The battle line that should guide them. What is it that they want out of their lives, out of their way? And what is it they want in place of it? That video is titled, that broadcast was titled, Drawing the Battle Line Against the Fraud of 1999 and Its Enforcers. Again, YouTube title, Drawing the Battle Line Against the Fraud of 1999 and Its Enforcers. This is what will guide those who are coming to say no, which they're entitled to. Ninas is not opposed to coming to say no when things are upside down. But we insist, Ninas insists, that we have to define the change we seek so that we can make demands that can bring about those changes, instead of just going out there to start a commotion which the system can take advantage of. We saw it in NSAS. The system has its own hoodlums that it will unleash, and then it becomes rowdy, and then they begin to shoot. They will stand on the foundation of that constitution to do what they are doing. What they will do, they are going to do it again. If our people refuse to listen and frame their demands in whatever action they're going to take, to be potent and to be capable of delivering the change that will come from extinguishing the source of the problem. Now let's listen to that broadcast.
In the final analysis, the peoples of Nigeria who are living in the torment of military Nigeria will have to step forward to begin to join the task of salvaging themselves, saving themselves from impending doom. There's already bad weather. There's already rain falling and destroying things. But the one that is now the deluge that will come if we fail to arrest the situation is why we're making this short appeal to open your eyes to where that calamity is coming from. We have identified that constitution of Nigeria as the source of all your misery and the collapsing environment in which you live. And so we are pointing you to, we want to be able to identify who the enemy is in this complicated battle. The enemy is anybody that subscribes to that constitution, that 1999 constitution. It could be a candidate contesting election. It could be political party. All the political parties in Nigeria subscribe to that constitution. It could be supporters of the candidates. It could be people who go to vote in the election under that constitution. They are the ones, but if you were looking for who, because some are doing, some are deceived. The ones who are deceiving the others are the ones who swear to defend and uphold that constitution. They know, because we have engaged them. We have told them these things to say the people are dying. But they grab that constitution with all their might because of the profits they make from it. They know that you are going to die. They know you are going to get more miserable. They are not explaining to you. They don't want you to know that it is because of the profit they will make for themselves. Governors, every month, 5 billion, 10 billion, for them and their families, to which they are not, on which they are not accountable to you for how they spend. In the 48 months, they will be there 4 years, or 8 years if you are unlocked, 84 months. Or is it 96 months. And so, those are the people tormenting you. The ones who subscribe to that constitution, the ones who swear to defend and uphold, the ones who go to election, political parties, all of the political parties. Now, what are you to do? What are you to do? Separate yourself. In the days ahead, Ninas will be drawing a line, will be making an altar call. All of those who stand with that constitution on one side, all of those who stand with Ninas to take down that constitution right at this time on the other side. That's what you find in Nigeria in the days ahead. Because we can't continue like this. And the torment has come to where those who, who want to save themselves must now stand up and help take down that apartheid constitution that bring all these torments. The ones who swear to defend and uphold that constitution are committing treason against the rest of us. They're committing an offense that could be punished with any kind of punishment the mob can inflict. But they are committing treason because they are hanging on to a document that implants our signature fraudulently, empowering themselves to do what they are doing, whether it is stealing they are doing, or it is the killings they are doing, or it is the other things that they make profit from that they are refusing to do. We must separate ourselves from them. They are the enemies of the people. The other enemies are only the Fulani that come to kill you are able to get to you because that constitution is in place, still in place. So it is your twin brother, it is your nephew, it is your sister that is part of upholding that constitution, going to renewing the life of that constitution that has brought the Fulani that is killing you. If it is hunger that is, if it is poverty that is grinding you, if it is electricity that is destroying your business or lack of fuel, whatever it is that is tormenting you, look for those you can reach, those you know their homes that are subscribing to that constitution, whether they are doing political party or contesting the election or swearing to defend and uphold that constitution, having won. They are the ones, they are the ones that are putting you through that torment. So by this short broadcast, just dress back, inform other people, send this information to everywhere you can get to. If you want to be a part of solving that problem, we are going to make a formal invitation and people are going to come to take the specific steps we're going to be directing in the days ahead, because the time is here to solve the problem that's been tormenting us for decades. We have built sufficient consensus against that constitution, sufficient consensus against the proprietors of that constitution, those who benefit from that constitution, and condemn the rest of the people to the miseries they live in, so that together we will take down that constitution and arrive at new, constitutional protocols that we shall determine in self-determination, ratifying by referendums. I think we stop here.
So we take it from here now, addressing those who are planning all manners of protests and all manners of revolution in response to the free fall of the economy, in response to the hardship that have been inflicted upon them by their government, in response to the general situation in Nigeria, where mass poverty seems to be just on the increase, gross insecurity. Now, Ninas has followed very closely all of what have been flying around concerning the protests that are being planned. There's a notice for nationwide protests that will take place between the 1st and 10th of August, titled End Bad Government in Nigeria 2024. end bad government. There's also the one in which Issa El-Buba was announcing along the same lines, ending of bad governance, immediate end of bad governance, provision of good governance, and all kinds of, meaningless talk, meaningless in the sense that Issa El-Buba was one of the very many religious leaders that Ninas engaged in the period leading to 2023 elections to say change of leadership is not the solution to the problem as we have it now. It is the constitution that is responsible for everything that is happening everywhere to everybody. Whether we are talking about the Niger Delta that's agitating for resource control, it is the constitution that took away their resources. The poverty that is chasing everybody everywhere is because all the money in the treasury has been confiscated into the hands of the operators of that constitution, whether they were president or governor or senator or house member in Abuja or House of Assembly member in the state. That constitution has taken everything for them. And so while those in Abuja are stealing in trillions, the governors are stealing in hundreds of billions. We will soon begin to hear how the council chairman will be stealing in hundreds of millions. Where does that leave everybody? We also saw the list of things. The purpose of this broadcast is to get us to dress back for a moment before the commotion begins, to determine precisely what we are rejecting, precisely what we want in place of what we are rejecting, and precisely how we are going to obtain that, so that the demands of the protests, of the revolution, of whatever be the pushback, the demands will be tailored to deliver the result we already thought through clearly. It is in that context that we again look at something that is said to have come from Sowore, listing what will be the demands. Incidentally, he starts it with say, oh, go and change constitution. He says, number one of the demand, say, scrap the 1999 constitution and replace it with a people-made constitution for the Federal Republic of Nigeria through a sovereign national conference to be immediately, you toss the Senate arm of the pay Nigerian workers, invest heavily in education, in all of that. I think there were 14 such demands: massive shake-up in judiciary, immediate reconstitution of electoral body, reform of electoral law, all kinds of, and so that is from that angle. The one of end bad governance, bad government. Their demands include, say, subsidy should be restored and the price of petrol reverting back to below 300 naira per liter. That tertiary education should go back, the cost in terms of fees paid in schools should revert to what it was before this government came. That the electricity tariff should be reversed downwards to what it was. Import duty reversed to what it was. Salaries and allowances of National Assembly members reduced from what it is now. Make INEC independent. Reconstruct national, reopen borders, and all of that. These are all. There were 12 of them. So when you take the end bad government demands, and the one that came from Sowore, and the one that El-Buba is announcing about ending bad governance. You discover that it's all mixed up. A government that is confronted with such will, of course, say, yes, we're doing our best, we're going to do more. That's all you're going to say. How would the constitution be changed? All the problems, every one of the problems listed, corruption and impunity and everything else that is not, all the dysfunctions, every one of them is flowing from the constitution. Is it not then the rational thing to do to look for how to address the source of the problem, other than leaving that source intact and making the demands that allows that constitution to stay? Because that's what it is. You say, oh, go and you come out on the street and you say, go and change constitution. They'll tell you we're on it. That was exactly the same mistake that the NSAS protest made. They didn't think through what they wanted in place of what they were rejecting. Even in rejecting what they were rejecting, they did not trace those things to that constitution that was the source. So they were looking at people in government house who are stealing money and police that is chasing them, instead of looking at the constitutional arrangement that produced a unitary and centralized police command, in which there was now SARS that was chasing after them. And we were saying to them, okay, if you protest about police and their brutality, who is going to protest about the electricity that is not there? Who is going to protest about the security that is missing for all, especially those being invaded in the Middle Belt and elsewhere? Who is going to protest for the infrastructure that has gone comatose, that is non-existent now? Who is going to protest for the electoral malfeasances that are serial, in which your votes never coronate whoever? Who is going to protest for all the other many things that makes Nigeria the poverty capital of the world? Why don't we identify those things as flowing from the constitution that creates all the conditions, and then demand, like South Africans demanded an end to apartheid constitution? And an announcement had to be made in 1990 by the government of Frederick de Klerk to commence the termination of the operation of the apartheid. And so the message of Ninas to all the people planning one form of protest or another, or one form of revolution or another, is to say, let us define the change we seek. In defining that change, we'll then identify the constitutional arrangement as the source of everything. And this announcement also goes to the Labour Congress and all the civil society people that will jump out to say, oh, we support the protest. Everybody who will speak, the lawyers that pretend they're on the side of the people, but they all subscribe to that constitution. We saw them in their numbers at the election tribunals in Abuja. We will see them in EFCC cases now. But where are they? Where the Bar Association of Nigeria, NBA, on this discussion of the constitution that is directly responsible for the damnation of the people, for the mass deaths we are seeing, for the mass impoverishment we are seeing? Where is the Bar Association? Where are the lawyers in the land? Who should know? Who should lead the charge? No, they are not interested. They are more interested in going to election tribunal to share billions of naira with their judges. That's all they're interested in. Look back at that election tribunal period, and you will see that each of the presidential candidates had several senior advocates, some of them up to 50 senior advocates. Where are they in this discussion of what is tormenting the people? They are not interested. Where are the church leaders that preach PVC? PVC that will revalidate the life of that constitution by election. It was your church leaders, your religious leaders, that led you to this damnation you are in now. We told them that election under that constitution brings that constitution to continue after the election against the people who are living in the torment of it. And so their lives will get worse. They're going to be killed some more. They're going to be impoverished some more. They refuse to listen. They know the truth. They are not interested in your salvation or welfare. They're interested in what they make from their friends who win elections. All the church leaders, all the religious leaders, that's what they're doing. Otherwise, why are they not in the forefront? Like Bishop Desmond Tutu in South Africa was at the forefront of saying end to apartheid. The bad governance we're talking about is flowing from that constitution. all of the problems we complain about, including corruption, flowing from that constitution. Is it then rocket science to say, let our demands be tailored, to understand that our demands must be tailored to address the source of that problem? Labor unions, you are now bargaining for minimum wage for yourself. What will happen to the rest of the population? Secondly, where will 60 or 70,000 take you when the constitution that takes away electricity from you is in place? The constitution that takes away petroleum products from you is in place. The constitution that guarantees the corruption and the impunity by which all the contents of treasury is taken away. Where would that 70,000 naira take you? We called the leaders of labor to a meeting so that we can explain to them what the problem is, so that they can join their voices in the search for the termination of the life of that constitution, so that we can go into transition and sort out this matter once and for all. We've been living with it since 1967. Unitary Nigeria is the reason the Nigeria defined by this centralized command and control structure is the reason everything is how they are. Everything you complain about, that is where it's coming from. And nothing is going to change. They can only get worse. The Fulani and the Caliphate that imposed that constitution and their agents, they are still standing on it and making their benefits while your conditions continue to deteriorate and degenerate to what you have seen. And so, as you plan to come out, as you prepare to say no, NINAS invites you to tailor your demands towards that constitution, and that is where the 5-point proposition of NINAS is now the ready-to-use mechanism to end the trauma you've been living in, to bring about the change you seek. Because the first of our demands is, which we're inviting you now to join. If you adopt those 5 points of demand, it will not take 1 week from the time you begin for the government to say yes or no to it. Every other thing you demand, they're going to say, yes, we hear you, we're going to work on it. But if you say acknowledgement of the problem that Nigeria has, acknowledgement, that is to say, it is the unitary constitution of Nigeria that is the problem we have to solve. Second, a commitment by that government, if that is your demand, it will not take 1 week. It will not even take 3 days for the government to give an answer to that. And they're not going to find any answer that will not become the solution to the problem to give you. If you say that a commitment, an announcement, committing to the decommissioning, wholesale decommissioning of that constitution, not any amendment or any kind of legislative action. Number 3, the suspension of any talk of further national elections under that constitution, so that we can go and solve this problem once and for all. All of those who are calling you out to protest now, go and check whether they've not been going to contest elections under that constitution. How can you be rejecting a constitution and every 4 years you go and contest election under that constitution? At what point will it be addressed? Will it be jettisoned? At what point will it be changed? Who will change it for you? So NINAS is saying, as a mark of our rejection of this source of our damnation, we must now insist that all the plans for any further national elections starting from 2020, we're not talking about the states, all these municipal, these off-season elections that happen, because that's what the system is trying to do to keep itself running, to make sure that there's an Edo election. Then the next time, Ondo, another time, in between, they are busy. Everybody is going, PDP, APC. Let us dress back from all of that and insist that we will not go to 2027 election under this constitution. That is all you need to do now to activate what will solve this problem. Every other thing you are doing is a matter of ignorance. Every other thing you do in demanding for anything will leave that constitution intact. The system will stand on that constitution and contain you. They will kill some, They will bribe away others, like they've been doing across the last 55 years. So number 4 is to say the 2-stage procedure for reworking the constitution, because your demand will then be a transition, an immediate transition to rework this constitution. Every other thing you seek, it is at that point of reworking the constitution that you now set the rules that will guarantee the end of corruption, that will guarantee the end of bad leadership, that will guarantee the drastic reduction in the cost of governance. It's not the allowance of a portion of salary, basic salary of 600,000. For people that take home, close to 30 million, you had it from one of them. Plus the constituency allowances they take. The other time it was Christmas, and they all each took 200-300 million. Just Christmas bonus for themselves. You saw when they bought vehicles for them, 160 million for one. What is the relationship between the 30 million that they take every month on the average and the 600,000 they are now offering to forgo 50% of? They may deceive those who do not know, but they can't deceive those who know. And so it is not about the cost of governance we are talking about. It is in writing down in the constitution by yourself what and what and what will be the structure, what and what and what will be the system, what and what and what will be the responsibilities of each tier of government. And then the local governments have no business in the constitution. Shame on all the lawyers who are saying now democracy has come. In a situation where we are complaining about unitarism, unitary arrangement, in which the federal government, by 68 items of exclusive list, confiscates everything that should have been the powers of the federating units, the states. They broke down the federation, they fractured the 4 regions into states, we now have 36, and took over all their assets and their powers, bunched them into this exclusive list. It is in going to that transition, insisting on immediate transition, the type the blacks in South Africa insisted on at the time the apartheid constitution was still in town. That is the problem we have to solve now. And then the final one is to say the time-bound announcement. Somebody must stand up in Abuja to make this announcement, acknowledging the problem, committing to solving the problem, committing to suspending further national elections so that we can go and deal with the matter now. Otherwise, the politicians will come back to you. They're already holding nocturnal meetings here and there, alliances and coalitions. P2B is already gathering people to say we go again. All of those things will lead to further disaster. We warned you before you went to 2023. We warned you before 2015. You didn't listen. Buhari happened. After 8 years, you thought the worst was over. You went again in the midst of all the warning. Look at what has happened to you. Look at what has happened to the people you are voting for. Are those men of God who are mobilizing you suffering with you now? No. So why can't we make that conscious decision to dress back from what we were thinking before and rearrange in logical formation what we will now come out to demand? Ninas is saying that the demand must be the termination of the life of the operation of that 1999 constitution. An immediate transition to go and rework. We're not anarchists, so we say let those in government house remain in government house so that we can go. The owners of the sovereignties that are confiscated into Nigeria from 1914, they are the ones who have to go and decide first whether they want to federate, and if they say yes by referendums, on what terms. It is when the people decide, discuss, and document all of this that it then becomes a constitution that can have the preamble, we the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, because we have now identified ourselves, Yoruba wishing to federate with Ijo, Ogoni wishing to federate with Tiv, Urobo wishing to federate with Kataf, and so on and so forth. That is the nature of the problem we have. That is the nature of the solution that will apply. That time-bound announcement, the type that South Africa made in 1990, to begin to wind up the operation of the apartheid constitution is what we must target to do now. Every other thing we talk about wanting to do is a product of either ignorance or dishonesty. We have more than 1 week. Today is, we're at least 10 days away from when whatever protest will begin. If those who are calling you out into this protest are not prepared to think through what the problem is that needs to be solved and how it will be solved, the Nina's 5-point proposition, then you can take it to the bank that they are dishonest. We would have been talking about ignorance if we hadn't dealt with them. We had dealt with every one of them. Confront them with what we have just said, whether they know or they don't. Let those who follow Peter Obi around ask him whether he does not know that this constitution is the problem. That is responsible for the bad leadership we're talking about, responsible for the corruption we're talking about, responsible for the killings happening all over the place, just because of the centralization of everything in the hands of people who want it so, who benefit from it. Ask Showore whether he doesn't know. Ask Elbuba whether he doesn't know. They all know, but they know you don't know. And so they draw you out. They are part of the system. They are agents of the system. If they are not agents of the system, they must now join in the task of taking down that constitution, which is what Ninas had for the last 25 years organized countrywide, including international imperatives for doing it. And we have something that should not take more than 90 days if the rest of the people will wake up now. And so, since the consequences of going to election under that constitution has come home to everybody, why can't we now say, let us turn off the tap? Why can't we now say that Ninas is right, transition now, in rejection of that constitution? If you don't do that, you're only saying we want to be killed some more. We want to be impoverished some more. We want to be enslaved some more. That's what it will mean. And so, in closing, Ninas invites all of those who are planning one form of protest and revolution to join in this discussion of framing the demands to address the source of the problem. Otherwise, what happened to NSAS protests will be a child's play in terms of how this vicious system will manage what you are doing. We read what they were saying about who are planning to organize what is going to happen. We can't descend to the level of answering back at them. We are talking to you who live in that calamity to stand up and assert your right. It is your right. Sovereignty belongs to you. And it is in exercise of that right. You have to assert it. You have to overthrow the constitution that hijacked your sovereignty. The people that swear to defend and uphold that constitution are not on your side of this matter. They are the ones tormenting you, and they masquerade under various political party platforms. But you have to take responsibility for your own life, for your own future, and take charge by standing up and demanding an end to the operation of that constitution. Everything needed to do every bit of it is contained in that Nina's 5-point proposition, step by step. From the time you say you reject, from the time you adopt those propositions as a mark of your rejection of that constitution, it will not be more than 90 days to when the solution will have been placed on the table by those who have refused to listen to you all the while. And nobody dares shoot at you. That is your best defense from the shooting that might happen. If you frame your demands to point at the source of that problem, that constitution, because it is upon that constitution that they stand. It is from that constitution that they draw the power to shoot at you. It is from that constitution they draw the power to steal all the money in the treasury. It is from that constitution they draw the power to act with impunity, because there's a provision that protects them from you. Did you make it so? Did you write it so? Did you make that constitution that gave them all of this and excluded every good thing from you? You didn't. So you cannot be rejecting the consequences of that constitution and at the same time warming up to go to another election under that constitution, because the winner, no matter who, will swear to defend and uphold that constitution, meaning that your situation is being reinforced and it will be entirely your making, because there is now an opportunity to terminate your trauma simply by adopting and putting forward demands that begin and end with that constitution, so that we turn off the tap from where these atrocities are flowing towards you. We stop there. Thank you for listening.